When the sun cast its first light over the ancient city of Chang'an in China, in Rome, it was setting. These two examples of civilizational success, one in the East, the other in the West, sat on opposite sides of the world. But over time, subtle cultural ties have been forged between them. While the citizens of Rome dressed in silk from Chang'an, homes in Chang'an were adorned with glassware from Rome. Over hundreds of years and thousands of miles, these two cities had built a fascinating bond. The moment their curiosity about the outside world was awakened, the people of ancient China took their very first step right here in Xi'an.
这里就是丝绸之路的起点，我们今天还能够看得到非常深的沟槽，这就是当年留下来的车辙。
It took the Han Dynasty envoy Zhang Qian 18 years and another envoy Gan Ying 30 years to complete their journey across the known world. Setting out from Chang'an, they travelled across Central and West Asia, the Middle East and Southern Europe, heading for the Mediterranean. They travelled these huge distances with just one destination in mind: Rome, the legendary centre of Western civilization.
这里叫奥斯蒂亚，这个港口是欧亚两大文明的交汇地，这也是陆上丝绸之路和海上丝绸之路的一个交汇地。
From the other side of the world, generation after generation of Western explorers, including Marco Polo, embarked on journeys from Europe to Asia. And just like their Chinese counterparts, they were filled with a sense of expectation about their chosen destination. The conditions along the 6 Silk Road corridors and the Maritime Silk Road even today remain harsh and unforgiving. They present travellers with many challenges. Many explorers driven by curiosity have travelled this cross-cultural road for thousands of years. Today, the route is much more accessible and relatively obstacle-free, but there continue to be adventures to be had on this long pathway. What is it that makes this ancient route so magical? It's often the most seemingly mundane things that have the greatest influence on our lives, and so it is with the Silk Road. It is still significant to our lives today.
这是番茄，一听就知道国外来的这个胡瓜啊，现在我们叫黄瓜。我们今天这些蔬菜看来看去都不是原产于中国的，那么中国原产的在哪里呢？萝卜、白菜啊，这是原产于中国的，没有那么多丰富的外来的这个食品，我们的食物是多么的广大。意大利的土壤和气候特别适合生产水果，像这里哈密瓜，还有这个西瓜。可是这一切都不是原产于意大利的。 原产于意大利的这个水果可能是葡萄，所以在没有丝绸之路之前呢，不管是东方还是西方，我们的食物是非常单调的。
Imagine what it would be like today if ancient travellers from the East had seen cucumbers and tomatoes in the West, but hadn't brought them back. They simply wouldn't have become part of the lives of ordinary Chinese people. So what is the force that has given us the great variety of food on our tables, changed the landscape of the entire world, and tied Chang'an and Rome so closely together? The answer lies in our everyday commercial activities, the power of business. It was business activity that brought wheat, cotton and potatoes from the west to the east and protected people from hunger in the freezing winters, droughts and floods of ancient times. In turn, business activities also spread emerging technologies such as papermaking and printing technologies from the east to the west, making it possible for science to survive the medieval Dark Ages and shape modern knowledge. Business activity weaved an all-encompassing web, eventually interconnecting everything on the planet and generating cultural exchange and integration. Regarding these ancient trade connections from Chang'an to Rome, there are still many questions waiting answers. Why was it, for example, that in Rome silk from Chang'an was valued even more highly than gold? And how were Roman gold coins used in Chang'an? The answers to these questions are to be found in these two historic cities. We're about to explore the ties and bonds of the 1,000-year history of trade between Chang'an and Rome. When Chinese tourists visit Rome, the elaborate silk that can be seen almost everywhere can help you feel at home. But 2,000 years ago, the citizens of Rome were still wearing clothes made of rough Hessian cloth. When they saw soft, elegant and luxurious Chinese silk for the first time, the Romans were astonished. What on earth were the ingredients that could produce such a fabulous fabric? One popular explanation went like this. The weather in the faraway east was so hot that wool grew on trees, and silk was made from this tree-grown wool. To their utter surprise, it turned out that this extraordinary fabric came from a small worm. In the Shanxi History Museum, we can see this worm that changed the world history of fabrics. It may be the smallest exhibit in the museum, as small as your little finger in fact, but it played a significant role in the history of civilization.
这可是一件丝绸之路历史上的一件顶尖级的宝物，它是鎏金铜蚕。丝绸之路最大的贡献者莫过于丝绸，由于蚕给我们带来了非常精美的丝绸，所以古人把它奉为天虫。
How did such a tiny, insignificant worm end up changing the world? The silkworm was once an endemic species in China, originating in the basins of the Yellow and Yangtze rivers. Before the emergence of the Silk Road, no one outside of China had ever heard of it. The history of silkworm cultivation in China can be traced back to the very ancient past. It is said that it was Lei Zu, the wife of the Yellow Emperor of legend, who discovered the secret of the heavenly worm. In its brief lifetime, a silkworm goes through multiple transformations. But what's most magical is the way it spins its thread. Various other species, such as spiders, can also spin thread, but those species are difficult to control and cultivate. By contrast, a silkworm will continue to spin thread for as long as it's fed with mulberry leaves, and it's relatively easy to manage. This makes it ideal for domestication. A silkworm can spin a thread as long as 2 to 3 kilometers. The process of spinning the thread, which is little short of a miracle, is known as cocooning oneself. Silk thread is the thinnest and softest of all natural fibers, and its resilience is remarkable. This is why it's ranked as the finest of all the natural sources of textile materials. So how are the individual threads turned into silk?
丝绸是中华民族发明的，它至少有几千年的历史，它比文字的历史还要早。
Shang Dynasty oracle bones from more than 3,500 years ago are inscribed with writing that refers to mulberry leaves, silkworms, thread, and silk. This is proof that at that time Chinese people were already equipped with sophisticated skills ranging from tree planting and silkworm raising to silk reeling and spinning. Of all the steps, silk reeling was the most important. It was discovered that the thread could be separated from the cocoon by boiling the cocoon until it swells up. The next step is spinning the silk. Due to the thinness of natural silk thread, multiple threads have to be twisted together to form a lock of threads. After a series of complicated procedures, the result is exquisite silk. China's beautiful silk became its calling card. It was through silk that the otherwise mysterious Oriental nation introduced itself to the Western world. And while travelers from Europe didn't know the secret of the heavenly worm, in the beginning, they referred to China by the name Ceres, meaning the nation of silk. The mysterious worm was like a precious gift bestowed by a god, one that enabled ancient Chinese to build a relationship with the Western world. Small as it is, the silkworm not only transformed the history of fashion and attire, it built a bridge between East and West, transforming the world in a far-reaching business revolution. Rome, the final stop on the Silk Road, is considered the world's second home of silk. In this large wholesale market, we can see for ourselves the huge impact that this delicate fabric has had.
Ciao, Fred.
Ciao Martin, come
How are you
stai?
today?
Bene, tutto bene, grazie.
This huge market offers a variety of silks. Famous Italian clothing brands are said to be frequent callers here. Still, to this day, time-honored silk remains the most desired and sought-after fabric among Rome's fashion elite.
E poi fatto fare dalle fabbriche con cui lavoriamo. E questa è una particolarità perché quest'anno abbiamo fatto questo broccato che grazie a questa retina può essere non foderato.
In ancient Rome, the kind of silk sold everywhere today at relatively affordable prices was considered a real luxury. It was even more expensive than gold. But why was it priced so high? At the time, silk obviously cast a kind of magic spell over the world of fashion. The release of the film Cleopatra, starring Elizabeth Taylor in the title role, was a major event of the year 1963. Of the 65 costumes worn by Taylor in the film, a large proportion were silk dresses that created a sense of opulence and luxury. History tells us that in real life, the legendary queen and the Roman dictator Julius Caesar were among the first admirers of Chinese silk. In effect, they became influential silk ambassadors, bringing about a craze for the fabric right across Europe. These are the ruins of Trajan's Market in Rome, thought to be the world's oldest shopping mall. The ancient shops here can give us a glimpse into the significance silk had here 2,000 years ago. On these damaged statues, we can see carved folds of fabric. They look soft and smooth. Is the sculptor imitating the texture of silk? Are these statues representations of fashion models of the time? We can also find clothes that appear delicate and silk-like on many Roman frescoes and statues of gods. It would, after all, have been fitting for a deity to be dressed in something as precious as silk, as it was extremely expensive. 450 grams of silk was traded for 600 grams of gold. Silk was quite literally more valuable than gold. But why was the price of silk so high in ancient Rome? And what was the price in Chang'an?